The vicious guard dog charged at the billionaire's son, and everyone else ran the other way, but I ran straight at them, grabbed that little boy, and took the hit myself, and in that one crazy second, I went from invisible black Maid to the only person the so-called monster dog and that broken rich family were willing to trust. My name is Clara Johnson, and this is the story of how a 5-year-old boy, a dangerous dog, a grieving father, and one tired woman with more scars than she admits, ended up becoming something that looks a whole lot like family. Even if some people still think I don't belong in that picture. When all this started, I was just the new maid at the Whitmore estate in Georgia, another uniform in a big old southern house that creaked with money and silence. And that afternoon, I was on my knees in the yard, pulling weeds, sweating through my shirt, listening to cicadas scream in the trees, telling myself to be grateful I had a job and a roof, even if the roof wasn't exactly mine. The air was thick, the kind that sticks to your skin, and I remember thinking the only dangerous thing in that yard was the rusty rake by the shed. Then I heard it. This sharp plastic squeal and a growl that did not belong in any polite neighborhood. I looked up and my heart just stopped. Little Caleb Whitmore, 5 years old, curls sticking to his forehead, stood by the back fence with some bright squeaky toy in his hand, twisting it like it was the funniest thing in the world. And halfway across the lawn, dragging a broken chain, was Titan, the cane Corso nobody could handle. Jet black muscles, tight, eyes gone glassy with panic and rage, locked onto that noise and that little body making it. People like to tell the story like I was brave, like I thought it through. But the truth is there was no time to think. Only time to move, so I threw off my garden gloves and ran feet, slipping on the manicured grass, stomach, cold mind empty, but for one thing, get to the boy first. I reached Caleb just as Titan leapt, grabbed that baby under the arms, turned my back to the dog, and twisted so my body took the blow, and the world flipped. My shoulder exploded with pain, my spine slammed into the ground, and for a split second all I could hear was the rush in my own ears. Titan's teeth snapped shut right next to my face. I felt the heat of his breath, the spit on my cheek, and something in me just switched. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't swing. I did the one thing years of working with traumatized dogs had drilled into me. I dropped my voice low and steady, and I gave that animal a job. Back. Stay down. Eyes on me, boy. I ordered not like a scared woman, like a handler. I kept Caleb tucked under me with one arm opened. My free hand kept my gaze soft, but locked on Titan's, not challenging, not shrinking, just there. He came in for another lunge, chest heaving, this horrible sound, caught between a growl and a scream tearing out of him. But when I didn't flinch, when I didn't hit him or grab for his collar, something in his eyes flickered. It's okay. Easy. You've been hurt before, huh? I whispered, talking low, so only he could really hear me. Somebody beat you till you didn't know your own name, didn't they? Nobody's hurting you here, not him, not me. I dropped my eyes just a little, kept my palms open, my whole body saying, I'm not your threat, and slowly, like a soldier remembering old training, after too many battles. Titan hesitated, huffed, then folded down into a crouch, still shaking, but no longer trying to rip us apart. Around us, everything snapped back into motion. Shoes pounding on stone guns drawn, somebody yelling, "Get away from it! Get the kid!" Another voice shouting, "Don't shoot, Mr. Whitmore's on his way." And then there was Elliot Whitmore himself, the billionaire I only ever saw from a distance, sprinting across his own perfect lawn, with his tie half-off face, gray eyes fixed on the little boy under my arm. He scooped Caleb out from under me, hands shaking, scanning him like he expected to see blood everywhere. "Is he hurt? Is he hurt?" he demanded. "No," I gasped, trying not to throw up from the pain in my ribs. He's just scared. I'm fine. It's just a scratch. Somebody muttered about the chain breaking. Somebody else blamed security, and Elliot just cut through them with, "Spare me the excuses. I told you that animal was to be secured at all times." Then he looked at Titan, then at me like he couldn't decide which one of us confused him more. "What did you do to it?" he asked, like I'd cast a spell. I wiped the blood running down my forearm and said the first true thing that came to mind. I spoke his language. That night, after the chaos died down, and the staff went back to pretending everything was fine, I stood in the tiny staff kitchen, pressing a wet cloth to my shoulder, listening to the old pipes rattle and the cicadas scream outside, telling myself not to shake, not to cry, because crying never fixed a thing. The back door creaked, and there he was, Elliot Whitmore, not in his fancy suit now, but with his sleeves rolled tie, gone hair a little messy, holding himself like a man who'd just realized his money doesn't make him bulletproof. He set a first aid kit on the counter, watched me for a second, like he wasn't sure how to start, then said, "I saw the footage. You threw yourself between my son and that dog. You could have been killed." I shrugged, winced when the muscle pulled. I could have, but he shouldn't have to sleep with that picture in his head. I answered because that was the truth, you know what I mean. There's a particular kind of fear that sticks, and I wasn't letting a 5-year-old carry it if I could take it instead. He told me they had tried everything with Titan, trainers, behaviorists, even a priest one time. Everyone calling the dog broken, dangerous, too far gone, and still he watched that video and saw the same animal fold when I spoke. "So what are you?" he finally asked. "Because you were hired as a maid, but that wasn't a maid move." I took a slow breath. "In another life," I said, "I volunteered at a center that took in abused dogs, the ones everybody else gave up on, the ones scheduled to be put down because they were too aggressive. I worked with them for years." I hesitated because this next part was mine, not on any resume. "My boy Isaiah, he died 6 years ago, hit by a drunk driver when he was 8. After that, I couldn't stand to be around kids for a while, but I still knew how to care, and those dogs, they were the only thing that made sense, all fear and no language for it." I felt his eyes on me then, not like a boss, but like a father who'd just watched someone else take a hit his bank account couldn't block. He nodded slowly, shoulders dropping just a little. "Well," he said, voice rough, "for what it's worth, I owe you more than a bandage." I shook my head. "You don't owe me anything, Mr. Whitmore, just don't let them put that dog down, because they're scared and lazy." He studied me for a long second, then said quietly, "Call me Elliot. You earned that much today." The next morning, my shoulder ached, my ribs felt like they'd been rearranged, but I stepped out onto the back veranda with a cup of cheap coffee, and there was Titan, right where I last saw him, curled under the maple tree by the tool shed, eyes half open, body coiled, like he hadn't let himself sleep. The yard was washed in that soft Georgia mist, everything gray and gold at once, and for the first time since I got there, I felt needed. Elliot stepped out beside me, his own mug in hand, looking more like a tired dad than a billionaire. "He hasn't moved from that spot all night," he said. "He's watching still on guard." I watched Titan watch us. "He's waiting to see if this place is just another set of hands that hurt him." I said, "He doesn't know yet that the rules changed." Elliot told me how Titan came here. Shipped from some overseas breeder, a business gift, all these flashy words about loyalty and protection in the paperwork, and none of the truth about shock collars, starvation cycles, fighting pits. His little boy had seen the big black dog from the window, pointed and said, "Titan," and they laughed and let it stick. Then the bites started. Then the fear. Then the constant argument between sending the dog away and watching his son sob himself sick at the thought. "I don't keep that animal for a business partner," Elliot admitted, staring at his coffee. "I keep him because my kid loves him, and I don't know how to choose between his heart and his safety." I looked at him, then at the dog. "Maybe you don't have to choose," I said quietly, "if you give that animal a chance to be something other than a weapon." After that, my job quietly shifted. My paycheck still said house staff, but my days were all about routines. For Titan, for Caleb, and if I'm honest, for myself. In the mornings, I made breakfast in the staff kitchen, simple southern stuff that smelled like a life I lost. Bacon, biscuits, eggs. Fixing a plate for Caleb, pretending not to notice how his shoulders dropped in relief when he saw me walk in. He'd tug at my sleeve and ask if Titan could have a little piece of bacon for being brave. And I'd tell him dogs don't live on people food, but maybe, just maybe, a treat today. I'd wrap a strip in a napkin, take it out back, and walk slow toward that maple tree. I never called Titan with that sharp, barked command the guards used. I just crouched a few feet away and set the food down. "I'm not here to control you," I'd murmur. "I'm here to understand you." I'd stand up and back away, and he'd wait, always. Wait until I was far enough. He felt he had a choice, then he'd creep forward. Take the bacon, retreat again, eyes never leaving me. Every day, the distance between us shrank a little. At the same time, Caleb started finding me when the house got too loud inside his head. One afternoon, he appeared in the laundry room doorway, holding a crumpled drawing, Titan, under the maple tree, Caleb sitting beside him, both their names written in wobbly letters. "Do you think he's still mad at me?" he asked, lip wobbling, for squeaking the toy. I dropped the sheet I was folding, knelt down so we were eye to eye. "Baby, it's not your fault, not even a little." I told him, "Titan's not mad at you, he's confused, but he remembers your voice, and dogs don't forget kindness." Another night a storm rolled in, not the gentle kind, the kind that rattles old windows and turns trees into claws. Thunder cracked so loud, it woke me from a dead sleep. I was halfway down the hall before the next one hit, and by the time I reached Caleb's room, he was already under the bed, arms wrapped around his knees, rocking, whispering, I can't breathe when it's loud." I dropped onto the floor, crawled under the bed with him, pressed my chest to his back, like I could be a wall. "You don't have to do anything but be here with me," I murmured. "We'll breathe together, okay? 1, 2, 3 in, 1, 2, 3 out." His shaking slowed, the thunder became background noise instead of a monster. And then I heard it. That low rumble in the hallway. Titan stood in the doorway, massive and alert, but not aggressive, letting out this soft, questioning sound every time the lightning flashed. "You want him in here?" I asked Caleb, and he gave the smallest nod. "Titan, come." I called, and the dog took 3 slow steps, then lay down across the doorway, body stretched wide, cutting off the storm from the rest of the house as best he could. "He's guarding me," Caleb whispered. "Always," I said. And for a long time it was just the 3 of us in that small room, child, woman, beast, breathing through the storm together. The more the boy and the dog changed, the more the house noticed, and not always in a good way. Some of the staff didn't appreciate that the new maid suddenly had an opinion that mattered. Rosa, the longtime housekeeper, started slamming trays just a little harder, making comments like, "Funny how fast things change around here." And 2 of the junior maids whispered within earshot about how I talk back to the boss and pretend like I'm running the place. Someone even taped a note to a cupboard I use, "Some people forget their role." Titan growled low when I read it, and I ran a hand along his back, told him, We know who we are, that's enough. Elliot, for his part, called a staff meeting one afternoon, stood at the head of the long dining table, and said calm but deadly serious that I was the reason his son slept through the night, and his dog wasn't a lawsuit waiting to happen, that I had his full trust, and anyone who had a problem with that could speak to HR about finding employment somewhere else. The whispers didn't disappear, but they got quieter, replaced by a different kind of stare. One part respect, one part resentment. He also quietly changed my role on paper, made me family care and behavioral coordinator, gave me authority over Titan's training and Caleb's routines. I didn't ask for any of it, but I took it seriously. The twist, the thing that turned all of this from a strange little healing story into something messier, walked back into the house one afternoon without so much as a warning. I was kneading biscuit dough in the kitchen radio, humming an old hymn, when Rosa came in and said, "There's a woman at the door, says she doesn't need an appointment, because this is still her house." I wiped my hands, headed to the foyer, and there she was. Mid-40s, perfect hair, perfect coat, wearing sunglasses inside for long enough to make a point, radiating this quiet entitlement. The second Elliot said, "Margot," from the stairs above, I knew who she was. His ex-wife, Caleb's mother. The ghost nobody talked about. She stepped inside like she owned the marble under her heels, looked me up and down and said, "You must be the help." Before I could answer, Elliot was in front of her asking what she was doing there, voice tight. "I came to see my son," she said like she was asking for a drink of water. He reminded her she hadn't called, hadn't visited, hadn't done anything but sign documents and disappear for 2 years. She shrugged that off like dust. "I heard there's a woman living in my house raising my boy. I wanted to see what kind of saint you found," she said, eyes sliding back to me. It stung not because I wanted to be anything like a saint, but because in her mouth the word woman still meant someone lower than her. I didn't raise my voice, I just said, "He's outside building something with Titan. If you care about him being okay, maybe watch for a minute before you drop a bomb on his day." She arched one perfect eyebrow and sniped, "Are you giving me permission in my own home?" Elliot cut in, "Clara's right." And for a second, I saw that throw her off more than my presence did. So we stood at the big back window, the three of us, and watched Caleb in the sun, dirty knees, cardboard boxes spread out, Titan planted next to him, like a bodyguard. "He's taller," she whispered, hand lifting to her chest. "I didn't think I would feel this much." Elliot told her feeling something now didn't erase what she'd done then. She asked if she could at least say hello. We made a plan. I'd be there, Titan would be there, and we would let Caleb steer. That first meeting in the parlor was tense but honest. I sat beside Caleb on a small sofa, Titan on the rug between us, leash loosely around my wrist. Margot sat in a chair, opposite knees together, hands white-knuckled on her purse strap. "Do you remember me?" she asked after a moment. "No," Caleb said, as straightforward as kids are. "Do I know you?" I heard her breath hitch, but she didn't lie. "I used to be around when you were very little," she said, "and then I got lost. Not outside, inside my head." He frowned. "You got lost in your brain." "Yeah," she answered, voice shaking just enough. "Grown-ups can do that too." She offered him a small carved wooden whale from her bag, something she said she'd kept since she was a child. He turned it over, sniffed it, told her it smelled like lemon, then set it down where Titan could sniff it too, like he was letting the dog judge whether this woman was acceptable. Margot asked if she could come again, and he said she could, but not too soon, because his brain got tired when there were too many people. She agreed. When she left, she told me in a low voice, "You're better with him than I ever was." I looked at her and answered, "I'm here now, that's all," because I wasn't going to compete in a contest he never asked for. A few days later, another envelope arrived, not for Margot this time, but for me from the Whitmore estate attorneys. It laid out what Elliot hadn't had the courage to say out loud yet. Months earlier, when he was drowning in grief and stress before I ever arrived, he'd rewritten his will. Now he wanted to add me in. If something happened to him, while Caleb was still a minor legal guardianship, would fall to me with oversight from a small board, and there would be a modest trust in my name to make sure I couldn't be pushed out or bought off. I stared at the words, hands trembling. "You don't have to buy my loyalty," I told Elliot when I confronted him in the study that night. "I'm not," he said. "I'm investing in what you've already been doing. The only time I feel like a father again is when I see you and Caleb together." Margot, of course, heard about the guardianship clause through her lawyer. She called Elliot's attorney, asked for a review, and for a minute it looked like we were heading for one of those ugly rich people court fights. Instead, Elliot invited her over again, this time with the folder open on the coffee table. "You changed your will," she said, scanning the pages. "You made the maid his guardian." Elliot didn't flinch. "I made the person who shows up when he's screaming at 2 a.m. His guardian, yes," he said. She asked if he ever hated her. He told her he stopped waiting for her. It wasn't pretty, but it was real. In the end, she surprised me. She didn't scream, didn't threaten to drag us through court. She asked very quietly, "Do I get to try to be something to him again?" And I told her trying isn't the hard part, staying is. She agreed to a structured visitation plan with me as the one person who could call it off if Caleb was struggling. She even read and signed the document that kept me as future guardian. "For what it's worth," she said, as she capped the pen. "I don't hate you, Clara. He's lucky you're here." I didn't say it out loud, but I knew something else. He was lucky she finally showed up, even if it was late. Life didn't turn into a fairy tale after that. There were still storms, both outside and inside, still whispers from neighbors when they saw a black woman, a white billionaire, a little boy, and a huge dog acting like a family unit at the park. There were nights when Caleb woke up sweating, and I had to sit by his bed, humming some old hymn from my grandmother's porch until he drifted back. There were days Margot visited and left looking like she'd run a marathon from the weight of her own regret. But slowly, the house changed. Elliot started cooking on Sundays badly, at first burning chicken and laughing about it, while Caleb stood on a stool helping, and Titan paced between us trying to decide which plate to guard. One quiet morning, Elliot came out to the garden where I was planting flowers with dirt all over my knees, handed me another envelope, this one thinner. It was a preliminary application for official guardianship review and possible adoption consult down the line. "It's not a promise that a judge will say yes," he said, voice steady. "It's just us saying we want this to be real on paper, not just in practice." Caleb, who'd been hiding behind his legs listening, popped his head out and said, "I already drew where your name goes, Miss Clara, right next to mine. Your name's the longest, so it makes the branch strongest. And I swear my heart just broke open a little more." That night, he brought me a drawing, a family tree with thick brown trunk and branches full of names. At the top was Caleb, to one side, Dad, on the other side, Miss Clara. Under the tree, nearly as big as the trunk, he'd written, Titan, and off on a little branch to the side he'd scribbled, Mom Margot, in smaller letters. "Is this right?" he asked, serious. I looked at it for a long time and said, "It's your tree, baby. If it feels true to you, it's right." He grinned, taped it on his wall next to a picture of Titan sleeping under the maple tree with a sign that said, "Titan's Spot." No yelling, only love. So that's how a woman hired to scrub floors ended up with lawyers speaking her name in the same breath as a trust and a will. How a dog everyone called a monster turned into a living blanket across a child's doorway during storms. How a man who'd locked his heart behind money started grilling chicken badly on Sundays and inviting the maid to sit at his table like she belonged there. People ask me if I think it's fair that I might get legal rights to a child I didn't give birth to, while his biological mother is still alive and trying. And I'll be real with you. I don't know if fair is even the word for what this is. I just know who was there in the middle of the night, who learned the dog's triggers, who counted breaths under the bed when thunder shook the house, who took the gossip and the side eyes and stayed anyway. I know biology matters, and I see that in the way Caleb sometimes stares at Margot like he's trying to remember something he can't quite reach. But I also know showing up again and again, especially when it's hard, that matters too. So let me ask you this, because I'm honestly curious what you think. If something happened to Elliot tomorrow, who do you believe should have the final say over Caleb's life? The mother who left when she was drowning in her own pain and is now trying to swim back, or the woman who came in as the help and ended up being the one person that boy and that dog both run to when the sky turns dark? Have you ever seen someone get judged by their job, their color, their past, like they were automatically the wrong choice no matter how much heart they put in? Tell me in the comments who you think the real family is in this story. What justice would look like here, and if you were in that judge's chair one day, who you'd trust to hold that little boy's hand when the next storm rolls in.